So in that first video, right, the dog is showing an aversion to leash, right? An aversion to the leash. All right, guys, in this quick video, I'm going to be going over a couple of clips that got sent to me asking for my feedback. So I'm going to do my best to give you the best possible answer. However, I do want to throw in a quick disclaimer. I'm just a regular trainer. I'm a regular guy on the internet, and I don't know all the details of that particular dog. I don't know the dog very well, and I don't know the owner's situation 100%. What I'm basically saying is take my advice with a grain of salt. But I am going to give you the best possible answer because I have worked with very sensitive dogs that look very similar to the video that you sent me, even worse than the dog that you sent me. So I've seen my fair share of incredibly sensitive, timid dogs with an aversion to leash pressure, and I'm going to explain as I go. So in the two videos, this is the first video here, right? You are handling the dog. And by the way, I also want to clarify to the people that are watching, the person handling the dog does not own the dog. This is a person that is working with the dog on behalf of the owner. And this is also the person that sent me the video asking me for, what I would do. So again, I want to thank you for providing me with this content, and hopefully I can help you here. So in that first video, right, the dog is showing an aversion to leash, right? An aversion to the leash. And you can see the dog actually trying to get away from the leash pressure. Right, so your assessment was, I think the dog maybe has never been on a leash before. And I would concur. I would agree that is probably very likely. We don't know. Maybe the dog has been on a leash before. And maybe it's just so incredibly uncomfortable that it's behaving as though it's never been on a leash before. I personally don't know. The other issue that was described here, it's on the second video. So if we look at the second video, here we see the dog hiding, right? It's hiding. It's in this constant state of fear. Based on what I'm seeing there, that's what the dog looks like. It looks like it's just trying to escape, trying to hide from the evil world out there. Now, the dog has been with that owner for a week. It's a relatively short period of time. It's not a very long time, so it's understandable. Now, another thing that was brought up is the dog is not eating. The dog is not eating unless the owner walks away. So if the person walks away and then they leave the food there with the dog will eat. But if the person is there in the room, the dog is just not going to eat. Very understandable. Here is now my advice. If you had asked me, what do we do about this dog? What would you do about this dog? If you had asked me that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would have probably given you a very different answer. And I'm willing to bet that a lot of people will look at this dog and give you a similar answer to what I would have given you. And that is, take your time, just be gentle, get on the ground, bring out the meatballs, the hot dogs, the cheese, just tap on its leg, tap on your legs and just try to be friends with it. And just realize this is a very sensitive dog and you're going to have to take your time and build it up gradually. Nothing wrong with that piece of advice. However, my approach now is very, very differently. I don't do that anymore. And I have worked with incredibly sensitive dogs. Okay, I've worked with a dog that was so sensitive that even if you applied a little bit of leash pressure, the dog would roll, spin, shit itself, piss itself, and just go into a complete panic. And then later, we were able to build a bond, toughen up the dog, and then the dog was like my best friend and a complete turnaround. So how do I approach these dogs now? I'm going to give you my advice here. So on the first video, you seem to be on top of it. You're using a slip leash by the looks of it, which is great. I love slip leashes. I would not use a prong collar at the stage that this dog is. I would not use a prong collar. I have nothing against prong collars. Just for this particular dog, not the right tool in my opinion. Okay, definitely I would not use a flat collar because a dog like this will tend to slip out of it and will try to find a way to escape out of that flat collar, because a flat collar is just flat. It's a regular buckle collar, and the dog is able to slip out of it a lot of times. I would certainly not use a harness. I would have no control over the dog. right? Absolutely no gentle leader, because now the dog could jump into a panic on that one. So the slip leash, great piece of equipment, and it seems like you're using it. Now, I would do a couple of things slightly different here. So the slip leash that you seem to be using at the time of the making of that video is something similar to this, okay? Which, again, I like these because it allows me to manipulate the dog. It allows me to have security in the dog, meaning the dog is probably not going to slip out of this. But the problem with these thin slip leashes is, even though it allows you to securely control and manipulate the dog, because it's so thin, it ends up choking the shit out of the dog. So the dog, on top of them resisting the pressure, now they're actually very uncomfortable. And that level of discomfort that this can bring, because it's so thin, can trigger the dog into a panic. So what I would do there, just to add something different, is I would use a slip leash, still a slip leash, but something that is just much wider, right? Or maybe use a thicker rope. The difference between these two is, if I put this around your neck and I start pulling you with this, you're going to feel the pull. Like, you're going to see a couple of dogs that I have in the video, right? You see that they're pulling. One of them is even pulling with the tongue in its mouth, and it's pulling on a slip leash, but it's this slip leash, so the dog's not getting choked. But if I put this on your neck and I try to manipulate you, control you, right? Not only are you going to be resisting the pressure, but you're also going to be getting choked, which will trigger you into a panic. So that's why I would switch from a thin slip leash to a thicker rope slip leash, or a wide slip leash. Now, you can buy a thicker rope slip leash. You could also make your own slip leash. Just make sure you use something thick as far as rope goes. Or if you're going to use something flat, use like an inch wide, like the one I have, like the one I just showed you. So that's one thing that I would do a little bit different. You are manipulating the dog, because we have to move the dog from point A to point B. And we can't just go, you don't like leashes? Fine. Don't worry about the leashes. We never have to touch a leash. It is a dog. It needs to get used to the leash. But since we're going to manipulate it anyway, there's no need to trigger extra panic by choking it. The other thing that I would do also, the other thing that I do actually do with these dogs, is once I put them on that comfortable leash, I will expose them to that pressure. We're not getting away from it. We're not going to offer food. We're not going to lay on the ground with the dog. None of that. Dog's going to be on a slip leash. I'm going to pick a spot, and I'm going to go there, straight line. Okay, so I'm going to go outside or wherever I'm training. I'm going to pick that corner, and I'm walking there with the dog, and I'm not stopping. Okay? What's the dog going to do? You guessed it. The dog's going to do what it did in that video. It's going to hit the ground. It's going to hit the brakes. It's going to try to hide. And what do most people do? They stop. They go, oh, you okay? And then they lay on the ground. They sit on the ground. They try to pat their lap, right? They try to clap their laps. They try to make friends with the dog. The dog does not want to be friends with you. Okay, this is in general. The dog, when it's in that state, it does not want to be friends with you. It's already decided you're bad news, right? It's already decided you're not my friend. You're putting a leash on me, something I don't like, and you're trying to pull me around, something I don't like. What makes you think that it's okay is going to make up for that? It's not. So we're not going to try to make friends with the dog, but I'm also not going to beat it into submission. I'm not going to go, damn it, you are going to do it. I'm just going to be very matter of fact, and I'm going to go, look, dude, I'm going there, and you're coming with me. And you can stop, you can roll, you can hit the ground, you can lay down, but I'm not stopping. We're moving. I'm not running. I'm just walking, very matter of fact. What will happen is the dog will go through these experiences that it's had in the past, and it will go, well, I do this because this normally works, right? I hit the ground, people normally stop. I roll, people normally come over to me and, tell me everything's going to be okay. And then they sit on the ground, and then we do that every time, and it works. What I'm going to let it know is we don't have time for that. We got to move. All right. I'm being matter of fact. I'm not being mean. I'm not being overly nice either, because again, this dog does not care if I'm trying to be nice. I'm just going to go. What will happen is the dog will adapt. Once you get to that spot, pick another spot and go. Now we're going to go there. And then you go in a straight line in a different direction. Once you get there, you pick another spot. Right? How long you do this depends on the dog. This is where I'm not there to tell you, okay, that's enough. Okay, do more. This is where you as the trainer have to decide, okay, I got to do one more, or maybe end it on this one. But essentially the process is we do that again and again and again. Once we're done with that session, the next session we do the same thing. And the next session we do the same thing, and the same thing, and again and again and again. The dog will start to adapt. The dog will realize hitting the ground and rolling doesn't cut it. It actually adds to my discomfort. So the best scenario for me, for the dog, is I got to keep up with this guy. And as they keep up, then what happens is as they adapt, what happens is they toughen up. And as they toughen up, they gain confidence. And as they gain confidence, you're able to bond with the dog more. I have worked with dogs like this that, again, were so terrified that even if you put a leash on them, they would freak the hell out. But by doing this right here, right, what I'm doing there is I'm treating them with dignity. And by the time these dogs realize, shit, I gotta carry my own weight, I gotta keep up, they gain their confidence. And every time I've done this with these sensitive dogs, right, they've always been fine with me. Afterwards, at some point, whenever, as the training and the bonding progress, we've been pals, like best friends. Because I am basically toughening them up. That's my goal. Not to keep them in this soft state of flight, but for me to let them know we're going to toughen you up. You're here right now, we're going to bring you up here. Okay, so that works tremendously great. The other thing I would do as far as the food goes, I would do what you suggested. You had a very good insight on that, which your suggestion was, offer the food, and then if the dog doesn't want to eat, put it away. It's exactly what I would do. I wouldn't do anything different, but I am going to add a couple of things here just to make sure that, everybody's on the same page. So what I would do there is same thing in that aspect. Offer food. Wait a few minutes. The dog doesn't want it. Put it away. Do it again the next meal. And do it again the next meal. And you'll notice, right, or the owner will notice, by day 3, the dog will be hungry. And if by day 3 the dog is not hungry, maybe by day 4. Now, I'm going to step aside here for a moment and address the people that are freaking out right now, right? We're not starving the animal. Starving the animal would be, I'm just not going to feed you for 5 days. I'm just not going to feed you for 3 days. I'm choosing not to just feed you at all. What we're doing here is different. We're giving the dog the opportunity to eat, right? So that's not starving. On top of that, most animals have the ability to go days without eating. People too, okay? People and animals can, and are actually built to go days without eating. Okay, most animals out there are not eating big meals 2 or 3 times a day. It just doesn't happen. It's very rare, right? Unless there's a constant state of abundance. It's usually not like that. There's periods of abundance, and then there are periods of scarcity. And animals are made to deal and to thrive in those moments of scarcity. So dogs can do very well not eating for 3 days. All right. Now, the other thing I also wanted to add is if the dog is not drinking, and if the dog's demeanor is very different, then that's time to bring the dog to the vet. It might be something entirely different. It might not be that the dog is not eating because it's not safe. It doesn't feel safe. It just might be that the dog is not eating because it's not feeling well. So if that's the case, as the person right there, or as the person who knows the dog, you need to be able to make that call and go, you know what, maybe I need to take it to the vet. And then, once you've assessed that that's not the problem, then go with that. Every single time I had a dog that said to me, I'm not going to eat in front of you, I just go, okay, we're not eating. Whenever you're ready to eat, let me know and we'll eat. We'll get going, right? And that works great. And it usually takes like a couple of days, maybe a few days. And then by the time it kicks in, the dog is eating every single time. I'm able to feed it by hand. I'm able to train with their food, and everything goes just so much smoother. So that would be my suggestion in that aspect. Now, what do we do about the dog hiding under the desk? Look, the dog just doesn't feel safe. Okay, it's in a new environment, and we don't know. Maybe it has a really poor temperament, or maybe it has been through some shit. We don't know. So in that aspect, I would say, let it adapt. It is going to take its time. It is going to happen. But what I would do there is I would still set the dog up for success. And what I mean by that is, if the dog is going to be out and about, rather than just letting it go to the corner and hide under the desk, I'm going to be like, look, we're going to do something. You're going to go in the crate. So instead of letting you feel like you are, hiding under a desk, and give you that reward history or that feedback that you're actually able to hide, rather than doing that, we're just going to eliminate that, and you're just going to go in a crate, right? So in a crate, yes, you're still put away, but it's much more structured than you just finding a spot to hide. Does that make sense? That's what I would do different there. Now, if you're going to use a crate, make sure you use a nice crate. If you use a crappy crate, this is not good, because if the dog decides, crap, I don't want to be here, the dog could bust out of the crate, and now the dog learns violence will break me out of a crate, which we don't want the dog to learn at all. The other thing that could happen is the dog might have learned that in the past, and then they'll go, okay, well, just simple. I'm just going to act violently until the crate breaks open. So if you use a crate that is not ideal, what will happen is the dog will bust out of the crate, thus reinforcing that belief that it can use violence to get out of a crate, or it will hurt itself in the process. Like if you put it in a wire crate, the dog will go, oh, I'd break out of any crate, and a dog will really mess itself up badly in a wire crate. So if you have that type of dog, my suggestion is you get a nice anxiety crate or an escape-proof crate, or a very tough crate. Just off the top of my head, I know that Dakota 283 makes a nice anxiety crate, which is called their Hero Kennel. It's super nice. It's very, very solid, and the gate is pretty flat, so the dog is not able to grab or hurt itself, and it's a very, very stout crate. There are a couple of other brands that make really nice anxiety crates as well. So I would check them out as well if that's something that you feel you need to do. It's worth the investment, because then you're not having to patch any dog. You're not having to put stitches on a dog that try to break out of a wire crate, and you're not having to deal with a dog that is constantly breaking out of a crate. So those are all the things that I would do. Again, keep in mind that I'm not there, so I can only tell you what I know based on the videos that you sent me and based on my previous experience. You and the owner have to decide what's best for your dog. And with that, best of luck. For everybody else, if you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe, and make sure you share it if you feel like it will be valuable to somebody else.